What's up, guys? Today we're doing an overview of Sean O'Malley versus Chris Moutinho. Now, that was one of the fights I've grimaced in most as watching, and I had a request come through to talk about the importance of good defense to prevent brain damage, and in particular, the part I really want to focus on today is what could Chris Moutinho have done to avoid taking so many punches to the head? Because no doubt that guy deserved the $75,000 bonus he got for Fight of the Night. He kept coming for it and coming for it, but you can only do that for so many fights before you're going to end up having massive brain damage. So today we're going to look in depth at the fight and talk about alterations that could have been made so Chris could have stayed safer in the fight and hopefully made it all the way to the final bell. Alright guys, this is one of the few instances where I find myself agreeing with Dana White in that he said the fight should have been stopped in the second round. I don't know if it should have been stopped in the second round, but I remember in the third going, oh, somebody should pull the plug on this fight. And I was surprised when Joe Rogan was going, wow, they shouldn't have stopped the fight. What you have to look at in terms of a fighter being able to finish, I think, is not just can he make it to the end, but what amount of damage is he taking, and does he have a chance of finishing the fight? And did Chris have a chance of catching O'Malley and putting him down and actually getting the victory? I don't think he really did at that point. He'd already had about 13 minutes to prove he couldn't catch him, and all we're doing in the last 2 minutes is just taking more and more and more punishment, because he wasn't switching up his fight style. He wasn't making massive adjustments to make sure that he was going to be able to score the KO. And I've been in this position before. When I fought Robin van Roosmalen in the fourth round, at the end of the fourth round, we went, okay, you've already been knocked down 2 times. You might have won the first round, but you lost every round after that. And my brother asked me in between the 4th and the 5th round when we were on the stool, are you going to be able to finish him? You have to finish him to win the fight. And I went, no, I can't finish him. And he said, okay, no more fight, I'm pulling the plug. If it's okay with you, I don't want to see you get hurt. And if you can't win, what is the point of continuing? Because it's just more damage. So I agree with Dana White. I think the fight could have been stopped earlier. Did it need to be stopped? Would Chris have made it to the end? Probably. He probably would have finished the fight. But you can have life-threatening injuries if you're not smart. And I think his corner should have pulled the plug earlier. Now, let's talk about what he could have done differently in terms of getting the fight more into his ball court. Because straight up, this dude was like a zombie. He was just walking forward. Every time O'Malley circled, he just chase him down and he walked forward. But the problem with his walking forward and the problem with the pressure he was bringing, especially for somebody like me as a pressure fighter, I like to put my hands up and move into the guy's punch range. But as I do that, I have 10-ounce gloves most of the time to protect my head, not walking in with 4-ounce gloves. And when I do get within range, I'm taking advantage of it. But the problem that Chris was having is he would walk in to the longer ranged O'Malley, right into the perfect punching range. O'Malley would smack him, and then he would take his angle. And he was just constantly chasing O'Malley, but not with really any game plan aside from forward, 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 get hit, forward, 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 get hit. It was more than a little painful to watch, and I hope at this point he's recovered to a certain extent. When you're one of those guys who likes to truck straight forward, you need to have 2 strategies. And what Chris should have been focusing on was, if he's going to pressure right in and he's going to really move in on O'Malley, he needs to make sure that he's doing it to the extent where when he gets in tight, he's able to throw punches. But so many times he was not even getting his hands off. He would just walk into a punch and then have to start chasing O'Malley again when he would angle. If you're gonna walk forward, you want to make sure you're actually able to get to that tight range. Number 2, if you're gonna walk forward, you can sometimes wait for your opponent to throw a punch just when you're out of range. So if I'm walking in and I'm going right to here where I can get hit, why not walk forward to about here, move around for a second, wait for the guy to punch, and then get on him? Because when somebody extends a fist out, they have to pull it back, and sometimes as they pull back is the perfect time to advance on them. But just moving forward and forward and forward with no real game plan, it's dangerous, and as you can see, it did not really work out. Now, the next element, which could be easily added into our forwards movement, is head movement. I don't need to be super slippery and dodging all the punches, but as I move forward, I can be dropping my head from side to side, so that at least when I walk straight in, my head's not right in that perfect punching zone. Maybe he throws, As I move forward, he misses, and that gives me my opportunity to let my hands go. Head off the center line, especially with massive pressure, is going to be very, very important. And also in terms of defense, if we're not just talking about moving in and getting the head off the center line, we can also be talking about when I'm stationary, O'Malley throws at me. I don't want to just have my hands here and make that my only defense. I also sometimes want to move my head. Number one, it's not going to give me the head damage, but number two, it gives me the ability to counter. Now, as we're talking about defense, we saw Chris utilize a lot of high hands and just leave them there. And that was his go-to defense. The problem with that is if you're blocking to the side, the front of your head's open. If you close off the front, the side's open. And even if your hands stay here and you're blocking 50-60% of the shots, it still feels really good for the other guy. The other guy is just lighting you up. He's letting his hands go. It's like a punching bag. It's like you're fighting a punching bag, and why would you stop? But if Chris had got a little bit of that elbow action in, as the punch comes, instead of staying stationary, you lift an elbow, the shot might glance off, but even more importantly, the guy might break his hand on your elbow, especially with those small 4-ounce gloves. And you see guys like the Diaz brothers utilize this all the time. They go palms to the head and they just elbow block. It's a fantastic way to utilize some defense, which might damage the other guy while keeping your head extra safe, because when I block here, I'm protected from the straight punch with the elbow and from hooks on the side. Now, as I was rewatching Chris versus Sean O'Malley, I noticed that there were not too many fakes from Moutinho. O'Malley, on the other hand, is a fake master. He's always twitching away, he's pumping, he's always working, trying to keep people off their game. But from Chris, we didn't really see any fakes. It was just straight in, try and throw really hard. What he could have done from the outside, instead of always just trucking right into those straight punches, as we already talked about, you move just outside of range and then you fake a couple times. So you're bouncing around, you chase O'Malley to the ring or the cage, and then instead of jumping in where O'Malley can just counter you straight away, you give him a fake. And then O'Malley tries to counter, and then you jump on him and get your combo off. It's probably not a good go-to strategy for Chris to make that his main game plan, because he's already fighting somebody who is fantastic at fakes. You don't really want to compete with him, but you have to have something. You have to have some sort of fake if your game plan of going forward is not working. And finally, guys, one of the big things which I did not see from Chris was counters. He was moving forward, trying to get off, but it was very rare where O'Malley would hit him and he'd counter back. And when you don't counter back, like we were talking about before with the punching bag idea, if O'Malley's out here, he's dribbling his basketball, whatever else he's doing, and he hits you, and then he just gets to reset. He hits you, he resets. There's no real dissuasion for him to stop hitting you. But if he tags you and then he gets countered back, every time, almost every time he throws, he's going to start being a little more hesitant to let those hands go. And then you can start utilizing your forward game and really being aggressive. Guys, no doubt Moutinho, he was put under a lot of pressure. He only had a short amount of notice for this fight, so he didn't really get to game plan, and I know that's a big disadvantage. He's also fighting a very difficult opponent in Sean O'Malley because he's an unorthodox guy. Somebody who has the potential to be a superstar. He has very good technique, very good skill. And when you put all those factors together, the skill level of the guy you're fighting, the time you had to prepare, it makes it very difficult to go out and get a win. But I didn't see too much from his corner giving him solid advice, the kind of advice that I'm giving you guys today about dealing with this whole situation. It wasn't really that advice. It was just more, go after the guy, you'll get him, you'll burn him down. Like that kind of advice is not coming from up here, it's more coming from here. And we want the advice coming from the brain. We want to be thinking, be calculating with our advice so that when we go in, it's not just battle versus battle. Because if you get somebody like O'Malley, it's hard to fight them like that. Anyway, guys, these are my suggestions from the request that I had about how you would go about avoiding brain damage if you have somebody like Sean O'Malley, and how Chris could have done a better job in this fight. But again, taking nothing away from him, I was very, very impressed overall just from his resilience and his non-stop pressure, just never giving up. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you have not already, join the channel and get subscribed. Train hard, guys. I'll see you back here soon for another video.